All right, here we go.
So
Now you have your, can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So today we're going to be talking about SEL, social emotional learning. And if you'd like to just take it away.
Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Oh, well, first, actually, let me introduce Teresa, which many of you probably already know her. She has been very active in our community and in her school. She's a member of the SAC committee, and a lot of you, she has helped to organize and use the information that we've learned here to start to make a difference in your schools. So Teresa has a bachelor's in business management and law from the University of Maryland. She began her military career in the United States Air Force as an air traffic controller for 6 years. And she went on to obtain her master's in community counseling and a master's in marriage and family therapy from John Brown University. She's been working for the past 18 years to provide mental health services in a wide range of areas, including school-based Psychiatric Hospital, IFS services, the Department of Social Services of the state of Maryland, and private practice. Teresa continues to serve the community through advocating for families, psychoeducational training, and consulting. So I cannot think of a better person to cover this topic. Take it away, Teresa.
Hello, everyone. There have been a lot of questions on the SEL program and also how it fits into some of the other specifically agenda items that are coming up at our school board meetings. And so, I've completed some research, and tonight is just to give you kind of an overview of some of the different programs that are coming in to our school board meetings and that they're voting on. And we're really not getting an opportunity to really look into some of these as well as we'd like to. So at the end of this, we're going to have some action items, which I think is very positive because we can look at information continually, but we've got to take that information and do something with it. And so I don't know about you, but I've been attending the school board meeting since last September. And I feel that personally that I've kind of been running behind the school board agendas. And so actually, Alexis and I kind of wanted to assist parents in getting ahead of these agenda items on the school board. But that's one goal. And the other goal is to really give an overview of the programs so you have more of an understanding. And probably the third goal is really understanding your rights as parents in terms of informed consent, opt out. I know that our district has struggled with, our school board has struggled with the concepts of opt out. And we need to really understand what our rights are in terms of this mental health direction that not just our district, but the entire country is going towards. So with that, I'd kind of like to start with just the basic of what is SEL. And that is the social emotional learning program. And it was developed in 1994. And it was created by a group of people that really wanted to provide, they felt like a missing piece within the school systems. So it involved teachers, mental health, people, school personnel, and also politicians. And so they all decided that they wanted to set up an SEL program. In theory, that is an awesome program because it actually gives your children an extra resource to obtain some type of mental services or just that connection with the actual the counselor in the school system. But it has evolved, and some of our real world events have caused the SEL to add what they call the inclusion. So every time that the SEL adds something that is relevant to what is going on in the country or nationally, globally, So what they'll do is they'll add a division or a subject. And so what happens is that CASEL, they were also formed in 1994 along with SEL. And their goal was to establish high quality evidence-based SEL as an essential part of preschool through high school education. Evidence-based is the key. Everyone can remember that. Also too, CASEL has certain guidelines within their program. And so SEL, when they include or add to a division such as inclusion, then that actually triggers the CASEL, and it has to be updated. And so it is also the funding arm of the SEL program. And so so at that point, it triggers an update for funding approval. But there are 5 areas that have to be completed with the application. And as I pulled the application, there were 4 sections that were completed by the district, but there was 1 remaining, and that was the evidence-based part of the CASEL application. And so in my opinion, that is why they hired Jeanette, that was on our last school board agenda, for trying to obtain block grants, Title I contracts. And that is where Jeanette can assist the district in completing the CASEL application. So one of the things that has to happen is that the process for the evidence base is pretty stringent. It has to include 3 years of research, peer reviews, and then also too, it has to meet the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015. So it is a very stringent application process. And so also too, we have the there's the SA. We have the SAMHA, and let's see, what is the acronyms on that? That is the Substance Abuse and the Mental Health Program. Now, that is the federal money that the district can go into. However, this money, it has to include equity. If you go back and you look up the SAMHA, it will tell you that you must include equity, and equity has to be attached to the mental health with the SEL guidelines in order to qualify. And so what happens is that it all has to integrate. It is all a source of funding that we have to complete things to get that funding within the school system. So one of my concerns is that when I've looked at the application, there's only been one part of that is not being completed. However, just leave it right there. However, there are, we have gotten some information on some different schools who have currently have the SEL program that's within each school. Now, what I've learned is that the district has not completed their SEL application, so therefore they have not picked a program. There is a variety of programs. Right now, the state of Florida is using about 6 programs, but Sarasota County has not decided on one. However, the different schools reported back to us that they are currently doing some type of SEL program, and we have gotten some negative responses from parents, just really surprised that the process is not being completed. One of the areas that is new is that, with the SAMHA, with the equity that's attached to that, I found out that through my research that the NIH, they have opened up a new division called Racism and Health Division. And if you want to go in and you can research that department, and there is a lot of information in there that will be very helpful in understanding how all of this connects. So next slide. Okay. So what happened with Florida? Okay. The University of Florida set up a pilot program, and it included 3 districts. How do you pronounce Duval?
Duval.
Okay. Sorry. Duval and Polk and Pinellas. Now they all had different goals that had to be achieved with this pilot program. And as you'll see on the slide, Duval, they actually had 2 arms as far as their goals. One was to build the integrated database, and the second one was to develop the district upstream database. So then Pinellas was instructed to do under the pilot program to do the 3-year program as the other districts. However, they were going to observe and develop the screening system 1 grade at a time. Okay. And so actually, at this point, let's see, they ran into, okay. So at this point, they had completed the pilot program. Okay. And one of the things that they ran into, one of the problems was that the screening could not identify at-risk children fast enough. Okay. And so in my opinion, one of the things that locally that our district decided to do was to, for First Step to be, to be a part of this overall plan. And as I go along, we are going to connect the dots. It is very complex, but at the same time, when you break it down, you're going to have those aha moments. Okay. So when First Step,
May I ask you,
sure, go
just
ahead.
to kind of like,
Yeah.
to pull it together up to this point. So there's SEL, and then there's CASEL,
Mhm.
and CASEL is so SEL is a good program at its
Yes.
core. It was
Yes.
designed for the right reasons, but
Right.
CASEL came along, and it's kind of like the funding arm for in order to be able to get the money that has been set aside for SEL.
Right.
And so they keep adding these additional requirements. And each time that happens, someone needs to write an application to
Mhm.
access the grant money.
Right.
And so what they've been doing is they've been creating these pilot programs to get as part of the data that's necessary in order to qualify, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's where we are right now. And then they weren't able to access that money or get the application done fast enough. So they're bringing in First Step, and they also added this SAMHA, Jeanette, who was on the last,
Right.
and she was approved at the last school board meeting.
Yes.
All right, so here we are at First Step. Oh, wait, we're going
Okay.
back one.
Okay. Yeah.
So
let me back up with First Step to understand. They provide counseling in schools, and that's what we call school-based counseling. And right now they approved 13 therapists at $650,000 at our last school board meeting. And so they had discussed this quite a bit, and so they went ahead and voted on this. So what does that mean? That means that these counselors are going to go into our different schools, and they are going to assist the social workers in identifying at-risk youth. One of my questions to the superintendent was, can you please define what at-risk youth means? I have not got an answer to that currently. And so First Step, they're going to be brought in actually to assist in the mental health evaluation and the training of all school personnel to screen for at-risk students. So the training, they also added $50,000 with First Step to bring in a therapist to do training. Now, as it stands right now, the majority of the teachers as well as additional personnel have been trained in identifying at-risk youth. Now, let me clarify that in the training, there is all personnel at the school. In anyone who has contact with the youth, whether it's a PE teacher, whether it's a school bus driver, whether it's a school counselor, whether it's a teacher or principal. So actually you have, in my opinion, you have some individuals who are being trained in this program through First Step that, we probably want to look into that deeper. So one of the questions that I asked Dr. Asplin at the last meeting was, can we as parents have access to that training so we know exactly what the employees are being trained on, as well as that it could actually, it could help some of the parents with identifying some of those things. I also requested that the employee training be put on the school website. To my knowledge, that's not been done yet. So as a mental health professional and as a mom, I want to know what is being asked of my child. I want to make sure that the right people are asking the right questions after my child has demonstrated some kind of concern, some kind of at risk. But what we're seeing is that these programs that are coming into our school district, they have more of a layered approach, and they are communicating to one another about our children. Okay, so we need to understand, we need to break down these different departments that have popped up on our school board meetings. Now there's one that's already established, and I really want to go into this, and it's the AWARE program. And that was also a pilot program through the University of Florida. And what they had done, they had partnered with the Sheriff's Department, and they created the ISF, which is the Interconnected Systems Framework on School Safety in elementary schools. However, this now is implemented all the way up to high school. So the goal of the AWARE program was to actually be able to identify as well at-risk students partnering with the Sheriff's Department. And so when you see Interconnected Systems Framework, what that really is doing is that the Sheriff's Department and anyone that's associated with that, they are communicating from the school to the Sheriff's Department, and your child's information and your child's medical history or mental health situation is actually being communicated via the internet with the Sheriff's Department. So to me, that's concerning. I would like more information on that, and hopefully we can obtain that, and we can include that with this presentation. So right now, also too, the AWARE program also has the Project Safety Project Safety Committee that is also attached to this. And as I was doing research, I found out that the Project Safety Committee was funded by the Institution of Justice. So now we have the federal government, okay, communicating to back and forth the Sheriff's Department with AWARE being the umbrella. So, and we'll get to this later, but one of the buzzwords in one of the contracts was that these counselors would be able to identify at-risk students and communicate to government entities. Okay.
That was in the Unitas contract.
Yeah. Yes. And so when we'll get to the internet highway, as I call it, a little bit later, but I just wanted you to understand the legal piece here, as well as when through the AWARE program, if the Sheriff's Department, Police Department as well, if anyone determines through communication between them or the school system, the school board is actually brought into the loop as well, as they should be. However, there's a lot of information that should not be going to the school board, in my opinion. Okay. So what are we going to do here on the Unite Us? Okay. So let me look at this really quick. So we have a first step that was approved that's coming into our school system. Let me make it very clear that as someone who did school-based therapy for 5 years, there's definitely a place, a healthy place within the school system for school-based therapists. And, you know, if you're identified or you want a counselor that's school-based, say that you don't have time to have them, you don't have time to take them to an outpatient provider. And so that's a service that the majority of schools across the nation provide. However, with the flow of mental health information, it's concerning to me. So then we have Unite Us that pops up at the school board meeting. And I describe Unite Us as the internet highway, okay? And they are working in conjunction with our social workers and First Step. So let's say that that they decide that there's a child that's at risk or who needs services. They will consult, identify, and then they will at some point bring the parent in, which is still a question I've not gotten clarification on. And so Unite Us serves the purpose of an additional subcontractor, they say. So the steps would be that you've decided that you want different services, or the school thinks you need different services beside First Step. So then United Us is able to send you to subcontractors that they have hired, and in mental health. Okay, all of this is mental health. So Unite Us is basically another provider. My concern with Unite Us is that, again, your children's confidential information, their potential diagnosis, their treatment plan, all of that's going along that internet highway. Okay. And one of the things that was concerning, if you have time, are we going to add the Unite Us contract maybe as a resource on this later?
Yes,
so they can screen this?
Yes, we're going to send out, after we finish this, we'll send out a follow-up list, which will have the bullets from this presentation, as well as some links to resources.
Okay, all right. I think that's very important. Unite Us is about 90 pages, but it really, every parent needs to read this contract because it was approved. And there were several of us at the last school board meeting who were there at the end. I mean, literally waving paper, attempting to have them push this program. So more parents, more of us could communicate and look at the contract, because we had a lot of concerns and a lot of questions that several of us brought up when we presented, but they voted to activate this program. So one of the concerns for me is that I downloaded the informed consent. You can actually go on the school website and you can look at Unite Us, and underneath that you can tap into or click onto the informed consent. And
we would actually, let's do that live and just kind of show them how to get there. If you don't mind, but I just wanted to recap real quickly, because this is like information overload. But so just to recap, kind of pull everything together. So you have, back in, I think it was July, they had a meeting the first time with this First Step, and they did a bunch of mental health contracts, and they had a bunch of, like, that Girls Inc., they had First Step, they had Unite Us the first time. And at that time, we brought up a bunch of questions that they were supposed to be looking into. And it included, how are they protecting this? What kind of firewalls are there? It brought up the fact that if you read the Unite Us contract, they no one has any liability. The school board doesn't. If your child's personal information gets into someone else's hands, they don't have responsibility. Unitas doesn't have responsibility. But just to backtrack a little bit, like what we've covered here. So there's a group of people at school. So this training that they've done, where they're training gym teachers, bus drivers, I mean, people that are supposed to be there to like educate your children. And so far, they're not even able to do that effectively because they're being pulled to be now mental health counselors. They're identifying the kids, right?
Mhm.
All of this is happening prior to parental consent being obtained.
Yes.
And so there are people at the school, they're asking open-ended questions like,
Mhm.
there's a purpose, there's an intention behind the questions. It's not like someone's walking around and they notice someone that's like seems very depressed. They're fishing for this information.
Right.
And then once they've determined or targeted or identified a student, then they bring them in for some kind of a more thorough evaluation.
Right.
So I think the way that they're getting around the parental consent is they have these school-based trained people that aren't providing services. They're just asking questions, right? And
Yes.
so they're gathering all that information from your child unknowingly. You don't know it. Your child doesn't understand the reason for these questions. And they're just giving them all this information that if you then at some point when they say, hey, we have some concerns and we have some great resources for you, that all that information I would imagine would then go into this system where they would follow your child. And you don't know, these people aren't trained mental health professionals. Some of them are bus drivers, gym teachers, whatever, just someone that's come in contact with your student. So what they did is they trained a bunch of people at school to speed up this process because the end game is how quickly can we get to this money, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
one go. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll take you to the contract after we finish this
Okay, yeah,
story.
okay.
But
We're almost there.
Yes,
as
we
far as
are.
unite us.
Do you want me to go back one?
Oh, sorry. Can you
That's
go
okay.
back to the informed consent? Okay. So as a mental health professional, I have several concerns with Unite Us. First, the school district cannot guarantee your child's complete protection for their mental health information. In the contract, the school is responsible for the hardware. Now, what that means is when you have a mental health professional sending things through over the internet, they have to have special or they have to have a standard, if you will, of programming as well as really stringent firewalls. And so that was another question that I asked, and that was not answered. And as a parent, I definitely want more information on the hardware, but that's I wanted you guys to be aware of that question was not answered. And that's a big red flag to me. Did I talk about the informed consent was illegal?
Not yet, no.
Okay. So the consent that I pulled up with Unite Us, all of you can go to this and you can probably read 3 of these examples of informed consent, and you'll be blown away.
Do you want me to pull up the contract right now? Would
Well,
that be helpful?
we're almost through
Okay.
this part.
Okay.
I kind of want to continue with the flow. I know that we've gone over a lot really fast, but they truly do layer and they truly do work into one another, and they're actually taking your child's information and as well as yours. Unite Us also states that not only can they obtain your child's information, they can obtain the family's information, the parents' information, and then they can send that along to the sheriff's department. They can send it to the school board. They can send it to the social workers. They can send it to First Step. So anyway, so let me get back to the informed consent is completely illegal. Also, too, there is no opt-out that has been introduced with this program, and by law it has to be. And we'll get into the opt-out and the informed consent later on. So we got the hardware. No, they wouldn't address that. Okay, so one thing overall about liability, and you may have mentioned this, but I do want everyone to understand that First Step in their contract is saying that they have no liability. The school board is saying that they have no liability. Unite Us says they have no liability. However, Unite Us can refer your children for resource. They can give you a third-party contractor. By law, with every subcontractor for mental health, there has to be what we call a business associate agreement. I also asked that question, and the school board was unable to ask that. And that's a big piece of this that all parents need to be concerned about, because also in the contract, what it says is that if you're not comfortable as a parent with the referral that Unite Us gives you, you as a parent are free to go and get your own therapy or therapist based on the school's recommendation that your child is at risk, that they have to obtain services. Okay. And if you do, it's called out of network. Through the contract, the school board requires that the out of network therapist would upload as soon as possible, and that is a direct quote, as soon as possible up to Unite Us. So then what happens is even with the privacy of going outside the school and obtaining your own therapist with your family, with your child, what happens is that they go back into the system, and then the information is dispersed between everyone. And so confidentiality, informed consent, those are huge issues and huge questions. And protecting your family and your child's mental health information, it's huge. And it's something that we need to really dig into, and we really need to find out why the school system has not given parents an opt-out from Unite Us, from First Step. And we need to find out also too, where's the informed consent? Again, with Unite Us, there is an informed consent, but no opt-out. With First Steps, one of the things that's different with First Step, they're required to have liability insurance as a mental health professional. So what's going to happen with First Step? The first thing they're going to do, someone is going to, at the school system, is going to identify that your child is at risk. Well, then the social worker and someone from First Step is going to evaluate your child and then call you, and then everyone's going to decide what you need to do next. Okay. And so First Step, if they sit down with you and your child and provide school-based therapy with you or with your child, they will have their own intake paperwork. And I promise you that First Step will have an informed consent within their, I would ask to see it. I'm sorry. With the intake paperwork, usually by law, there has to be an informed consent form. So usually if you're a school-based therapist, when you have an intake is what we call it, within that intake, there are papers that you would sign. For example, like if you went to the hospital, there's a group of papers that you would sign.
Not to mention that Unite Us is actually used at Sarasota Memorial Health Hospital. Just side note.
We definitely could draw lines to that, but we're going to stay basic here today. Okay, so also too, concerning, and this is kind of in summary with Unite Us, I'm very concerned about the internet highway. I'm very concerned with Unite Us because we don't know who the other contractors are. We don't know if there's the subcontractors. We don't know if they have contracts, and we don't know what their training is. Okay. So also too, Unite Us, they are going to be communicating directly with the Sarasota School Board. And this is very important. Any type of mental health, any type of diagnosis, any type of treatment plan, including an update of your child's care, will be accessible by the Sarasota School Board through Unite Us on the internet highway. Okay. And so also too, Sarasota School Board in the contract is also going to be a part of the decision-making along with you as the parent, in what needs to happen next in terms of services, which would then in turn be placed on the treatment plan. That is a huge, huge issue. Okay, so unite us. If anyone terminates the contract, whether it be the school, whether it be them, in the informed consent, it states that that Unite Us can't guarantee that all of your child's information is going to come back to that secure internet highway. And also too, they can't guarantee that they will even be able to find it. Okay. So also too, on the Sarasota school board side, when this contract is ended on either side, Sarasota school board is placing in the contract that all mental health records will come directly back to the school board, Sarasota school board, and be stored there. Okay, so we need to look at the law there. So when you have mental health records as a therapist, by law, you're required to keep them in your possession, originals, not copies, original mental health, full records, full charts, are to be stored for 7 years. Now, that does not matter if, I carry files to the school and I have a safe box is what we call it. And we take it from there back to our business, or if it travels through the internet highway. And so that is why the firewalls are so important. If you participate, if you do not choose to opt out from Unite Us, I just want to let everyone know the way the contract is written is that your child's information, including from diagnosis to treatment plan, and even the things that you say will be documented, and they'll be out there. And so anyway, I believe that there is some serious questions that need to be answered. And then, informed consent, I found the informed consent on the Unite Us, but no opt out on the SEL program. By law, I'll go back to this really quick, the legal piece of this. The good news is with the SEL program, in theory, remember that this program was developed and accepted by the state of Florida because of true positive, healthy reasons. But when you update and assign an agenda type subject, in my opinion, then that starts another agenda. Okay, so as well with the SEL, by law, your child does not have to participate in the SEL, but they did not and have not communicated that to anyone. For example, I did find the Broward County SEL opt-out, which I'll work with Alexis to upload some of that stuff, as well as some opt-out and informed consent forms. I just didn't want to overload with all of that, but I did want to let you know that your child has a right to opt out of the SEL. The problem here is that at the beginning of school, if you sign certain documents or if you don't, an SEL survey will be done periodically, which is 2 to 3 times a year. Because remember, what they're doing is that they are actually obtaining data through the mental health area, and they're wanting to get that information to become evidence-based to qualify for all of these dollars. Okay, so that is the end game. All right, so SEL has the opt-out and the informed consent.
And may I ask this,
Yeah,
the
sure.
SEL opt-out, that's like when your child is in the Hope class, for example, and they teach certain things about mental health in that class, and they send home a consent. Is that the SEL opt-out or?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the informed consent or the opt-out. And here is for the state of Florida, let's say that you have a class that's teaching culture or something like that. You have a right to know every piece of curriculum and everything within that curriculum. And if there's a part of that curriculum that you don't agree with, you can actually request that your child step out of that class and you're not exposing your child to that information that you don't feel comfortable with. And by law, Sarasota School Board, they have to provide alternative activities for your child. They cannot just set them in the gym or set them in the hallway. Okay, they have to do an alternative activity. For example, if I pulled my children out because I didn't want them to see something, they would go to maybe another classroom. They're little. They would work on, say, their ABCs and numbers. They would not be put somewhere without direct educational, direction. And so so you are able to opt out. You can actually look at the information, the SEL program, because right now we have found out that every school is doing a different program, even though we have not been approved through the CASEL application process, which is not completed.
Well, and all that means is it's just not, we're not getting the money, but the programs are still in the schools. And
Right.
Didn't you say they're doing it under a character education program?
Yes, right now, part of the application is that just the school counselor has different categories and they will fill in what program or how they're going to address that. And half of their report has, I don't know, because they are under the character education. What the school counselor has said for the district is that they are going to use their own program that they're going to design. So we have a lot of issues here, but I do believe, we can get to the bottom of it. We can act as a team. One of the things that, we can do, and I don't want to go off topic here, but one of the things that we can do is that we can make a phone call and request what SEL program is my child currently, being taught. And then we go into the harder questions. Number one, why are you doing this? Why did you take a survey? Why did you not give me an opportunity to opt out? And then you go through those questions with your principal.
So do you think it would be helpful? Maybe what we could provide is a form that's more proactive for parents that will have all of these things covered. It will talk about, first step, it'll talk about SEL, and it could be sent to school, just saying, I do not want my child to do any of these. Like, you just take the ball from them. Like,
Right.
I want, unless you expressly get my permission, I do not want my child participating in this. And if you're coming to our November 1st meeting, we're going to, in addition to all of this research, Teresa has been instrumental, along with Ingrid and some others at one of the schools.
Yes.
And they're going through, they're dividing the curriculum and they're knocking it out as a team. So we're going to have that group come up and tell everybody what's working in their school so that you can take it and do that at your school and get your team together. So to wrap up today, because it is 7:25, we're going to, here's some action items. Then we'll just hop over to where you can find the consent for the Unite Us. And then we will send out a follow-up checklist for you guys to look at.
And opt-out forms and informed consent forms.
Yes, I have SEL opt-out, informed consent.
Yes. And actually, I had quickly, I had put Broward County SEL opt-out letter. I mean, that was just an example to show you that they do exist, and that you have those rights as a parent to pull your child out of that program because of certain undertones, certain subjects, certain areas that you may not feel comfortable with. So you do have rights with all these programs, even though they're layered together, to access your child's mental health. You have options, and you still have the power. And that is one of the reasons that I wanted to do this tonight with Alexis, was to make sure that even though I had a lot of information that, could be concerning, is concerning, but we wanted to give you hope. We wanted to give you options. I really dug for the informed consents and the opt-out because that's your right. And we want to be able to lend that. So as follow-up, we'll send that, as Alexis said. But Alexis, do you want to do the action plan?
Sure. And we're going to also be doing more trainings like this. This is kind of like the top level of the iceberg. And once you keep digging, it's very interconnected. And this is how they're going to install CRT in our schools, just so you know. So we're giving you like, here's the overall, but then there's a lot more beneath that. And so all together, we can really combat this because they do it in these little incremental pieces. So nobody really notices it. But now we're like putting it all together and we can do something about it. So one of the things that we can all do, review the agenda items. A lot of this is buried in the agenda. And when you really dig in, follow all the links, which I'm going to go show you how to do in a second, you will start to see, wait a second, it looks like they keep doing this over and over again. Didn't they just pass this? You'll start to connect dots. Attend the school workshops. They have them online at YouTube. If you go to YouTube, Sarasota County School District, they stream those live. Or you can go sit in person. You cannot ask any questions during the workshops, but that is where they get into these nitty-gritty details. And a lot of times when you get to the school board meeting and they're voting on something, all the work's already been done because it's been done in these workshops and in other areas. So then compare contracts to the federal and state law. That's pretty self-explanatory. Just make sure that they're compliant because I think that you will find that some of, if not many, are not. Ask for clarity on the budget. So if they've allocated a certain amount for mental health, that's a pretty vague and large scope of items that could cover, ask them to drill that down and ask where the money's being spent, and match it to the contracts. Like, is the money being spent the way they said it would be spent? Review instructional materials and trainings. And that's something that we were just talking about. We're going to go into further information on that at our next meeting on the 1st. So I just want to do this real quickly before we leave, and then we'll have a couple minutes for some questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. Oops.
Do they have a place where they can send continued questions so I can look at those?
Yes. Let's one moment here.
I think there's going to be a lot of follow up.
All right. So let me get over to the website so I can show you guys 1 second here, how to find what you need. All right. Now let me go back over here. Do you see the Safari? There it is. No. Do you see it?
No.
Okay, I'll just do this. All right, so now we're going to go over here to our web. Where did it go? Isn't that interesting? Oh, here it is right in front of me. Sorry, everyone. Okay, Sarasota. All right, so here we are at the district website. And if you want to find this informed consent, you can go to, I usually go to, like, you can go to the calendars and find the next school board meeting. You can also go to Find It Fast and just type in agenda. And here you go, agenda and minutes from the school board meetings. And then from here, it should pull up. There we go. And then, so here is our next one. Okay, but we're going to go back to the last meeting because we're looking for stuff. Okay, so this is for the work session, which they usually don't attach anything to, but this is for the regular board meeting. This is how you find the agenda. I like to go to the online agenda because it has live links for all of the contracts usually.
And then you go to the Unitas.
Yes.
Okay.
So speed things up a little bit. Okay, so then we're gonna go down here to data share.
That's right, it's on down, I think.
Oh, it was the last item, wasn't it? Or no, maybe not.
I think it was 33. I'm not for sure.
Oh, that was that one.
Ballot language. I'm sorry. Oh, Unitas.
You see it?
Right, is that it? Yep, Unitas
All right.
platform.
We have lots of birds out here. All right, so here we go. The
There you go.
consent form. This is the agreement if you want to read it, and here's your consent form.
Mhm. I would have them print that off.
And you guys can print this off. And is there anything on here specific you want to just point out?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Let's see. There's so much.
We could also do, you know what? Why don't we cover some of this at our next meeting on the first two?
Yeah, can I show this?
Go
to them
for
real
it,
quick?
yeah. Well-
Okay, so,
Let me get out of here so
Okay.
they can see you.
okay. So everyone, I mean, this is what I tried to show the board. This is all illegal. All of these items on the informed consent is illegal. So I know it looks really rough, but I just wanted to show you this. I tried to give this to the school board or go over this with the school board and they wouldn't let me. I ran out of my 3 minutes.
Well, and we will send that out with some of the notes that,
Mhm.
that Teresa was talking about in terms of what's wrong with
Mhm.
it. But I think that covers that. So
Yeah.
Are there any questions in the last few minutes that you would like to go over?
I know we went through a lot.
We did go through a lot. Does anybody have any questions? No? All right. Well, I just appreciate everybody being here. We're going to do more trainings like this. Ingrid is going to be at our next meeting and she'll share a little bit about what she's doing in her school. And I just want to thank everybody for being here and
Yeah.
thank you, Teresa, for
Oh,
this.
no problem. Yeah.
All right, everyone have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. And